Hey everyone, welcome to Gwenabee, the place for Gwen Stefani fans. My name is Adriana, and today I'm going to be telling you guys all about how I first discovered Gwen Stefani and No Doubt. It was the year 2000, and my family and I were moving from Brooklyn to Long Island because my parents decided that they were going to buy their first home in the US. We originally moved here from Poland. I am an immigrant, and I've been here since I was 5. Even though I was not born here, I am very much Americanized. But the immigrant life is still very much a part of who I am. But so the year was 2000, and I remember it was some random weekday. My brother Dominic and I, we had just come back from school, and it was really bizarre because at the time, like, we had cable for free. I don't know what happened with the last owner of the home, but we had cable for free for a while. It was so weird but nice. And honestly, like, thank God for that guy, because had that not been the case, I don't know that we would have, come home that day from school to turn on the TV and to see TRL, which now is like such a old thing to talk about, TRL is like history. It doesn't exist anymore, right? But so it was TRL with Carson Daly, of course, and it was the day that No Doubt was actually debuting the music video for their single Ex-Girlfriend, which is on their Return of Saturn album. And there stood No Doubt, Adrian, Tom, Tony, and Gwen. And Gwen had, the pink hair at the time. She had those cornrows, and she just looked like so sick. She looked like a badass. I don't know, she just had this vibe that like I loved. At that time, I was about 10 years old. As I've tried to ask myself, like, why do I love like No Doubt and Gwen Stefani so much? Like, maybe to some people it's weird, but when I ask myself, like, why do I like them so much, I realized that I was introduced to them during a really during a life-changing event. Like, moving from one place to another can be a life-changing event. Even though it's like a relatively simple thing, the emotional implications are sometimes like not really known. You don't really know how moving will affect you, like who you will meet, what you'll find, what you'll encounter. Aside from being just young and impressionable and impressed by her, I think that for me, No Doubt was an anchor that kind of kept me balanced and kept me feeling safe and secure in the world that was so new for me. That's honestly what I make of it. I might have been 10 at the time, but I was like so hooked on No Doubt that I ended up going to my first concert when I was 10 years old. That was really crazy. Like, the same year I discovered them was the same year that I saw them in concert. From the moment that me and Dominic saw them on TRL to the moment we went to the concert, I'm not sure how many months went by or how many weeks went by, but within that time I just became like engulfed in them and their music. And when I found out that they were playing at Jones Beach, I was just like, I was so fanatic. I wanted to go so badly, and it was nothing I had ever experienced before. Like, I still remember to this day, like, talking to my parents about wanting to go to this concert and then begging both of my older brothers, Dominic and Bart, to take me. I think I might have even gotten down like on my knees and like begged. I'm gonna have to ask them because I don't remember, but I do remember like begging and pleading them, because I knew that like whether or not I could go like was totally reliant on like whether they would take me, because my parents weren't gonna go. They weren't like into that. But so thankfully my brothers ended up taking me to the concert. It was just the 3 of us. To this day, probably that's one of the best memories of my life. That was 20 years ago. My brothers are both older than me. So Dominic is 6 years older than me, and then Bart is 8 years older than me. It's a significant enough gap, I suppose. It's maybe not a decade's worth, but there was a lot of things I couldn't do for a while that they could, and sometimes it sucked kind of feeling like left out growing up. But it's like when you're just a girl growing up and you have 2 older like teenage brothers, like, yeah, they're gonna go off and do their own thing. But what I wanted to say is, like, to this day, that's one of the best memories I've ever had with them. And because they're older now, like, they're both married, they both have like wonderful wives, and they have great kids. And so their lives have changed so much, and I don't get to have that kind of like one-on-one time with them. It's never like the three of us just like hanging out, really. Those moments are really rare, and I cherish them. And as far as like the memories I have of like good times with them, one of the times when it was like just us three was like at that No Doubt concert, and it was so much fun. I wish I could like rewind time and just to like be there and just to like live it and experience it again, because that kind of excitement was just so, I don't know, it was just so pure. Like I was so young, I was very innocent then, I still think, and there was a lot of things I didn't know and, you know, was not exposed to, and there was just such simplicity in that kind of joy. I found something, someone, a few someones, you know, like No Doubt as a whole. Like I found a group of people that I thought were really exciting and talented, and I liked their vibe, I liked their style, I liked, you know, the way that they would all play together, and, you know, like seeing them smile, or like seeing Gwen dance, do the cool stuff that she does when she's performing. I just kind of fell in love with it all. And it's been 20 years 20 years since that happened, which in some ways kind of blows my mind, but in others it's like I'm kind of not surprised that this still remains like something very near and dear to me. No Doubt was my anchor. No Doubt was my anchor when things in my life were changing, when I was moving from one place to another, when I was beginning to grow up and entering my teenage years. Like No Doubt was there for me through all of that. And it was interesting how both my brother Dominic and No Doubt, they kind of like set the tone for the musical tastes that I would acquire. Dominic was super into reggae, and I was already like just, you know, beginning to fall in love with reggae. That was already something I liked very much. Then you had No Doubt. They had like the rock aspect, the ska aspect, at some point the reggae aspect too, and like all of these things came together. There was like a little bit of like a punk influence there too. And in my teenage years, like I was heavy into punk. Like I loved that stuff. Like there was just so many different types of bands and things I've listened to, like because I found No Doubt. I don't know what my life would be like without them. I don't know what my life would be like had I not discovered them. I felt like Gwen Stefani has been such a positive role model for me, and so being so young, I think it was important for me to have a positive role model outside of my home, and Gwen was that for me. Like I looked at Gwen and I thought, wow, she's so cool. And it wasn't that like, oh, she's pretty or she's got great style. Like, yeah, sure, those are very true things, but it was more than anything, it was just like the confidence that she exuded, kind of confidence that I saw. I looked at it and I thought, wow, I want to be that confident one day. I want to be that free one day. I want to make people happy the way she does and do something good for the world. And seeing her like, and seeing what she did like for me and then what she did for others, it was just so cool to be a part of that. If you were to ask me, you know, what's something specific that maybe I could remember from that time 20 years ago in the year 2000, I think one of the things I remember the most was seeing all these different girls dressed up like Gwen. I think that was one of the craziest things, was like being in this like stadium and seeing like so many different people just like rocking her style. I thought that was like such a surreal thing to see. And another thing that stands out about that memory is is how we left that concert. And so for me, like I know I was lucky just to go. Like it was all thanks to my brothers. Like had they not considered it, I would have been like, you know, just out of luck. But I remember just like wanting to stay until like the very end, because to me that makes the most amount of sense. But my oldest brother Bart, he was like, come on, we're gonna go, you know, otherwise it's gonna be really hard to leave like the parking lot, like really hard. And I remember just being like so frustrated. Like I think a part of me like understood, but I was so, at that time I was like so mad, because all I could think is like, how can he do this to me? How can we leave now? Like we should be here for the whole experience, for the, you know, for the whole stretch. We should be here from like start to finish, not from start to like almost done. And I remember that, and that, like, I was so upset about that. But I mean, that, like, you know, that being like upset, that didn't last very long. Like, I knew I was very lucky to be there. I felt very grateful. I was super happy that they took me, and eventually I was able to forgive my brother. Pretty much all throughout my life, like, whenever I meet someone who tells me they like Gwen Stefani, I like I freak out, like, in a good way, inside a bit, because I just feel like so ecstatic, because I feel like they must know exactly what I've felt growing up listening to her. For people that don't know this band and, like, this artist, you know, they don't get it. They don't understand what they sell. They don't understand, like, what the vibe is. Like, they don't understand what they do for others. They don't understand what the music is about. They don't understand all the like, different genres that they can, like, mesh and mix and, like, you know, transcend. I can't, you know, I feel like at some point I can no longer really explain it. They left such a mark on me, and I don't think that will ever change. I was 10 when I first discovered Gwen Stefani, no doubt. I'm 30 now. Still totally, like, obsessed. Still very appreciative of their existence. And I don't think that when I'm 50 or older that will be any different. I think their albums will be something that will always be, like, in my collection, like, forever. And pretty much one of my requirements, and I think this goes for, like, anyone who's, like, a major fan of anything, but, like, one of my requirements is, like, I cannot possibly date anyone who, like, doesn't like No Doubt or Gwen Stefani. That to me is an unfathomable possibility. I can't do it. That person automatically is just, like, off of the list of considerations, because no. It's not gonna ever happen, ever. Ever. Not ever, ever, ever. Never, ever. Yes. So now you know the story of how I first discovered Gwen Stefani and No Doubt. But what I don't know is, what's your story? How did you discover Gwen Stefani and No Doubt? Who or what put you onto them? I really want this to be a place where, like, us fans can enjoy the things that have had such a, like, wonderful effect on us, and not feel like we're weird because, you know, no one else gets it. Because I'm sure there are people that do, and there are people that don't. It's all that I have for you guys today, and I'll see you next week.